What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be talking about a Max Payne remake. I'm very excited about this. I used to love these games. I love Max Payne 3. I know I'm a little late to the party on this one. I was moving, had some stuff to do. Kind of flew under the radar. I don't even know how many people have really heard about this. But yeah, I guess they actually officially announced that they were going to remake Max Payne 1 and 2, and it's going to be one standalone title. I'm not too sure on if I'm really excited about that part of this news, but I am excited nonetheless that they are actually remaking these games, because these are some classic video games right here. Not to mention the fact that it's Remedy has actually partnered with Rockstar to bring these games back, which is cool in my opinion, considering they're the ones who made the original Max Payne game. Now, if you didn't know this, Remedy is not responsible for Max Payne 3. That was all Rockstar. Now, that brings me to the first talking point of this video, which is the combat. I have a love-hate relationship with these games in the sense that I honestly like Max Payne 1 and Max Payne 2. Max Payne 2 maybe a little less, but something I feel people don't really realize is it kind of lulls you into this false sense of security, into this idea that that dot in the middle of your screen is like pixel perfect where your bullets are gonna go, and that's actually not true. Like, if you actually go back and you watch some of the interviews with the people who made these games, one of the things they actually mentioned is they wanted to make it very, very accessible to new gamers. And one of the things they did was you're basically just waving in the general direction of the enemies, and you'll probably hit them. That's why if you use a shotgun when you're playing part 1 and part 2 and you're just kind of aiming around them, obviously it's a shotgun so there's more of a spread. But even with the pistol, as long as you're in the general direction of the enemy, then it doesn't necessarily matter exactly where that little dot is. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is because in Max Payne 3, they changed that. Because in Max Payne 3, it is pixel accurate. Like, wherever that little dot is where your bullet's going. And at first, I didn't really like it. But the more I started to play Max Payne 3, the more I realized how much fun it was, especially if you're going to go through New York Minute or Hardcore New York Minute, those difficulties, you know, the ones where you only get like a certain amount of time to beat the game. You basically got to run through it all. It gets really addicting when you really try to speed run this game. It's a lot of fun. It is a whole lot of fun. Not to mention that I know a lot of people don't seem to like the aesthetics of Max Payne 3 because it wasn't in New York, which is good for people who like the originals, because at least they're going to get a remake where it's going to be basically nothing but New York, which is fine. But I liked the whole setting that they had going on with Max Payne 3. You know, the brighter colors. I liked it when Max shaved his head and he was like just a bald guy with a beard. I thought he looked cool like that. I thought he was badass in that game. I don't understand why people don't really seem to enjoy him as much in the third game as they did in the first and second games. Especially considering the second game was really mostly just a love story. Now, it's not the worst love story ever, but I think we can all agree that the second game is probably the game that lost a lot of luster in terms of the storyline. So I'm not really sure how they're going to really do this in terms of remaking both games and putting them into one. I'm kind of curious as to how they're going to actually be able to put that together. I don't know if that just means we're going to get like beat for beat kind of thing going on between Max Payne 1 and Max Payne 2. I don't know if that means they're going to just completely butcher the story and kind of cut both games in half and kind of put it into one. Personally, I'm hoping that instead of cutting both games in half, that they're just going to, you know, at least try to fit as much of the story beats in there. Maybe we get more from Mona in the first game, like more, maybe they'll make her more like flirtatious in the first game, because that's who he ends up falling in love with. And obviously, if you're listening to this video, you've played these games and that's not a spoiler to you. If not, then welcome. Hopefully you're going to enjoy Max Payne as much as we did, but let's be real, you've probably already beaten the crap out of both of these games, so I'm not spoiling anything for you. Okay, so one last thing I want to talk about before we move on to other topics in this video is they need to fix the storyline with Mona, because Max Payne 2 was pretty much a game about Max coming to terms with the death of his family. But then in Max Payne 3, when we have the flashback scenes, he's just sitting there in front of the graves of his family, mourning his family all over again. Although I do like Max Payne 3, that is one thing I never really liked in Max Payne 3 is the simple fact that he went through this whole story arc to get over this stuff, and all of a sudden it's just bothering him even more. I mean, because as it stands now, if you skipped Max Payne 2 and just played 1 and 3, be honest with yourself, would you really have missed anything? Nah. Not really. So they need to do something about that. But it is something that I hope that they can actually retcon and maybe fix a little. Like maybe what'll happen is like he thinks he's in love with Mona, but what he's really in love with is the idea of having, his family back or something like that. So that is something that I really hope that since they're doing these remakes and it's going to be one game, I think it would actually be a great opportunity for them to go back and fix that. Especially considering you're not going to have to play 2 different games to see this whole relationship with Mona. I mean, it's gonna be kind of weird, right? If it's one game, at the beginning of the game, his family dies, and then maybe a couple hours into the game, all of a sudden he's wanting to get Mona and be with Mona. And I mean, wouldn't that just be kind of strange? Don't you think that'd be kind of weird? I do. So now that we've gone over that, I want to go over a couple of things that I feel the hardcores are really going to be adamant about, which before anybody jumps into my comments being like, oh yeah, you're making fun of the hardcore fans, I consider myself a hardcore fan. So this includes me. I've been playing this game for years. I've been modding the first 2 games for years, play them all the time because I love them. So the first thing I want to talk about with that though is the comic panels. Now I know a lot of people are going to want the comic panels to return, and it is kind of a cool way to illustrate the story. It's something that's kind of been ingrained into the Max Payne mythos at this point, and that's one of the things that people were really mad about when it came to Max Payne 3, because it was more of a cinematic kind of game. The way they did the story, they didn't do the comic panels anymore. They had a bunch of cutscenes. And at first when I thought about this, I thought, yeah, I kind of do want the comic panels to come back. But in my personal opinion, it feels kind of dated at this point. And again, maybe it's unpopular opinion, but I love Max Payne 3. And if you play that game more than once, you'll actually start to pick up on a lot of things that you might not have noticed. I'm not gonna lie, the first time I played Max Payne 3, I didn't notice that all these characters that he fights throughout the game are actually at the very beginning of the game. Like the head of the police is in Bronco's office at the beginning of the game talking to him. Like, I didn't even realize that until the second time I played through the game, so on and so forth. And I kind of liked the whole distortion effect that they had going on. I know a lot of people don't, but I personally thought it was really cool, especially after playing it so many times. And so personally, I would like to see them, don't get mad, don't freak out, I kind of don't want the comic panels back at all. I really would have no problem with them getting rid of the comic panels and making it, straight immersive storyline where there's cutscenes, maybe even in-game footage of a lot of the voiceover work that James McCaffrey did. And speaking of him, that's another thing I need to touch on now is we need to get ready for the face change of Max in Max Payne Remake. Now, would it be cool if Sam Lake came back to do, the motion capture work and the face work? Yeah, it'd be cool, but I really don't think they're going to do that. Maybe they would do it, but if they do, it would only strictly be to appease the fans. What I'm more concerned about is getting James McCaffrey back, because his voice is synonymous with Max Payne at this point. If we don't get him voicing Max Payne, it's just not going to feel right. Now, I would say it would be cool if they tried to get James McCaffrey to do the motion capture work and, the facial work too for this, but at the same time, he's like 63 years old. They would have to do a lot of de-aging just to make him look younger so that the game will make sense. If they don't do that, obviously he's going to be way too old, because Max in Max Payne 1 is only like 30 years old, and Max in Max Payne 2 is like 33. So we can't really be having this 63-year-old playing Max in Max Payne 1 and Max Payne 2. Now, again, it's not like I don't like Sam Lake. He's cool, and I could see them possibly doing it, but I doubt it. I think they might be better off just getting a professional actor to do the motion capture, and then having James McCaffrey just be the voice actor for the game. I think that's what they really should do. Although, yeah, it would be cool if he could. I just feel like he's just a little too old. I mean, then again, Rockstar's putting a lot of money into this, so they could certainly afford it. I guess we'll just see what happens with that, but I just want anybody who loves this series as much as I do, who's listening to this right now, to get prepared, because I honestly do not believe they're going to have Sam Lake reprise his role. I would be very surprised if they did. I mean, especially when you consider the fact that the whole reason his face was even on Max Payne's in-game model to begin with is because they were running out of time. That's also the same reason that the comic panels are even in the game, is because the developers were running out of time to put this game together. And they basically just took the storyboards and put them all together into a comic panel and then kind of pushed it out the door. So when you look at it that way, this is actually more of an opportunity for Remedy to actually make the Max Payne game that they wanted to make, that they didn't have enough time to make the first time they made it. Maybe it's good that they get this extra time now, because they can actually give us the game they originally wanted to give us. And fun fact, if you didn't realize this, Horn was actually played by Sam Lake's real life wife. So the actress who played her in the first game was his wife, which was really cool. I thought that was really awesome. Moving on to another point, I think we all know that music in video games is rather important, so they really need to hit home when it comes to the composers of this new remake. Obviously, I hope that they get back the people who made the original music in the first and second game, but more importantly, I'm hoping that they bring back Poets of the Fall. Now, if you don't know who Poets of the Fall are, they're actually a band. Sam Lake is best friends with their lead singer, which is why they actually got them to compose most of the songs for Max Payne 2. There's one song in particular that plays in the end credits, which was actually a single off one of their albums. Another fun fact, it was released on Max Payne 2 a full month before the single for that ever came out. So there really isn't much to say about the music, except I think we all know how iconic the music is in Max Payne 1 and 2, although I will say I do like the music from Max Payne 3, especially that last song that they play in the airport at the end of the game. Definitely my favorite song in Max Payne 3. If you guys haven't heard it, you should definitely go out and try to hear it. Maybe I'll put it right here in the video so you guys can actually hear that song playing in the background, because if you've played Max Payne 3, I guarantee you know what song I'm talking about. Now let's talk about a couple things that I know only true fans are probably going to even care about. First one is going to be, are they going to bring back the TV shows that they had in Max Payne 2, where you could walk up to the TV, turn it on, and it basically parallels everything that Max is going through currently within the game. I would really like them to do that, but I do have an idea for that, and that is simply that I would like to see them replace that with scenes from like Alan Wake or Control. They've already pretty much confirmed in Alan Wake that Alan Wake, Control, and Max Payne all take place in the same universe. I think it'd be really cool if they were to implement that simply as like an Easter egg for people who are in the know. Obviously, some people aren't going to care, but people who know what those games are would really probably get a kick out of that. Plus, then we can finally confirm for 100% that they are within the same universe. Now, at the same time, I could understand if some of you didn't want that simply based on the fact that you would kind of be taking out some of the narrative moments of the game if you replaced those specific scenes with scenes from Alan Wake, as opposed to it being parallel to what he's going through. But I don't really think it's really required for you to understand the events of the game. Now, obviously, if they don't do that, I'm fine with it. But it would be cool if at least they could put in some kind of connection there to at least Alan Wake, because I've always felt like the Alan Wake world and the Max Payne world were very similar, and I would totally love it if they'd finally give us a 100% confirmation, yes, these are in the same universe. Now, there is a little bit of an issue with that, and that's simply being the fact that Take-Two basically owns the rights now to Max Payne, and Remedy is pretty much just borrowing the rights and made a deal with Rockstar to make this one game. They're not like being bought by Rockstar, they're not part of Rockstar. They just made a deal with them to bring these games back. So the last thing I want to talk about in this video is, I know there's going to be people out there who are hoping that if these games succeed, that maybe we will get a Max Payne 4. I'm not in that camp, unfortunately. I feel the way Max Payne 3 ended was a perfect ending for Max's story. If they were to go back and retcon that at this point, or if they were to go and try to make another game at this point, I think it'd be very, very difficult for these guys to be able to produce a game that the fans would embrace. I mean, look at Max Payne 3. A lot of people didn't like Max Payne 3 simply because, he was in a different environment. It wasn't all about being in New York. It wasn't the whole noir thing that they were used to, which I love, I do, and I kind of get it. But at the same time, when I played 3, I gave it a fair chance and I really enjoyed it. I love the way Max Payne 3 ends, and I think it's just the perfect ending for him. So for them to go and make a part 4 and kind of ruin that, I feel would be a bad idea. But that doesn't mean that I don't think they should make another Max Payne game if these two succeed. Now you might be wondering, what are you talking about? How can they make another Max Payne game if what you just said was true? I'll tell you how. There's literally a 10-year gap in between Max Payne 2 and Max Payne 3. So if they really want to make a new Max Payne game, then I really feel like what they should do is try to put a game that takes place in between the events of Max Payne 2 and Max Payne 3, which is a time period that we know nothing about currently. Yeah, so if they're going to do it, then that is where the time frame should be. I do not want to see a prequel. For the love of God, no more prequels. I'm done with that. But if they have to do it, if they really just want to make another game, it really needs to be in that gap, because it would be a travesty for them to just destroy everything that they made at the end of Max Payne 3. So I think that's pretty much all I have to say about it, at least for right now. Unfortunately, this game is years off. They have literally just started pre-production, but I do have a prediction. I do think Max Payne Remake will come out before Elder Scrolls 6. I do have a video discussing Elder Scrolls 6 that's going to be coming out soon, so please look forward to that. If you've been listening this long and you're a total fan of Max Payne as much as I am, please like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate you guys being here. Take it easy, everybody. Late.